Welcome. This is a Crisisworks 4 coordinator session. It's really important that you watch the previous one, which is the introductory session, which covers all of the basics. So we'll assume all of that knowledge is there and there'll be very little overlap. So let's get into it. As discussed in the introduction session, Crisisworks is used for all phases of emergency management. So we'll be covering some of the elements to do with the preparation in terms of how we work with our global contacts and library items, as well as looking at a number of the areas to do with response, which are for coordinators. As a coordinator, let's start by creating a new event. And we do that by coming up to our event menu up here and selecting new event. Other people won't have this option. And then when we come into this screen, here we put in the event name. So we can put in the name, let's just call it a flood. Flooded car park, for example. And from here, this is a new feature that's been added in version 4, where you can choose to have the title exactly as we type it, which is the title only, or we want to automatically say append the date and the time started, or just the date only. So I'll go for that. This will ensure we have consistent naming style. And here we can have the date started. If we leave it blank, it'll be with the current date and time. The really important two things to add here are that the template. So emergency sample is one that we shipped with you, but you can create your own templates, and we'll be talking about that later in this session. So let's just go for this emergency sample. And the other thing here is to specify the category. So in here, if we leave it as test only, that will mean that any messages that get sent out will be prefixed with an asterisk and test, so it's obvious. So if you send an announcement to say there's a bomb threat and evacuate the building, then if people see the word test in front of it, they know to ignore it. If it's a real emergency, please change the risk level to low, moderate, or high accordingly. Okay, we just scroll down. You can put in a comment. So we might just say training, e.g. and then go next. And if your templates are set up, which obviously we'll be speaking about templates later on, then what you can do is you can quickly review and see if it seems correct. So these are the default positions that have come from the template, and we'll just click finish. And when we finish, it will automatically go on duty for the event. The creation of the event does take a bit of time. It can take up to a couple of minutes, depending on how many positions and how many resources are in the event. But so just wait for it. The reason why we make this a bit slower is we bring forward a lot of the optimization so that once the event's created, that the rest of it should then run at a pretty good speed. Once the event's created, it'll automatically come to this screen. And because we had that default option chosen, which says to automatically go on duty, it should automatically show up here, the event name we just created, and show the other events that we have in that list. This event summary screen is more useful as you go on, once you have data in it, and we'll explore that with another event shortly. Now that the event's been created, what we want to do is go to the dashboard by pressing any of the options in the top left-hand corner, which is either the bell, the overview, or the acronym for your site. Now that the event's been created, what I want to do is simulate another user. So what I've done is I've gone to another web browser. So in this other web browser, I've logged in as Waylon Smithers from The Simpsons. And what we'll notice is this event doesn't show for him. And there's two reasons for that. The first reason is if he was already logged in, then this event he won't see it because he hasn't actually joined it yet. And this will happen to you if you're in a training environment. So if you've got everyone in a room and they've already logged in, and then you go and create the event, then that event has been created and people don't know about it yet. So you have to tell them to actually go to and select this option here, join another event. The second thing to look at here is, does Waylon Smithers actually have access to the event? So what I'm going to do is look at Waylon Smithers. He's got two positions, the General Manager, PA, and Communications Officer. The new event that was created, which I'm going to flick back to now in my other web browser. When I look at the positions in here, if I have a look down here, his positions of Communications Officer and General Manager's PA are both not in there. So he won't actually see that. So what I'm going to do is give him access as the Communications Officer and come down and update. Okay, so I've now returned back to Waylon Smithers. And what I'm going to do is go to join another event, because as we can see, that flooded car park event is not showing. Select join another event. And it now appears in here up the top. So the newest event will come to the top. So click on Communications Officer, update duty status, and then he'll go on duty in that event. But because there were 3 different events selected, then what it's done is it's come back because he's already on duty in the other event. So if he actually wants to switch to that one only, he can go to that one. So we can select from that list, and he's now on duty. The other option is if he wants to look at all the data together, he can go to all participating events at the same time. Usually people will only be working on one event at a time. So when they are on this particular screen, it's probably advisable to them to say, look, if you're not on duty in those events, go off duty. And when you update your duty status, because there's only the one event selected, it'll take you to that event. So there's some questions that you'll be frequently asked, or problems you'll come across when you first start using Crisisworks, creating events, when you already have people in the room with you at the time.
And that's why we recommend that you create your event before you have your training session, because the people in the training session aren't going to be coordinators who need to create events. So that's why just create it before your training session. And then therefore, when they log in, they'll go to that duty screen and you'll see the brand new event. They'll go on duty and they're straight in.
So we've just created a brand new event, which is the flooded car park, and we want to create a new announcement. And the announcements are tied into the information module. So if we click new information, it comes up to this screen here, and in here is where we can send it out. So when you saw the other video, the beginners video, we talked about creating basic information records. So I'm just going to put a subject in here and put some details in. So if we want to send this one out, what we do is we can actually, and only a coordinator can do this, we can actually publish this by email and SMS. So given that a single click, we'll publish that out to all on-duty people in this event in these positions. So at the moment, it'll be all on-duty participants in the event. So if I click on that, this will show me all of those positions. If I just want to target a specific position, I can filter that down. I'll just type MER and just to filter that down, and I'll go for this Deputy Miro. I'll go for also the Miro as well. Now these are a couple of council-specific positions. So for other customers, we can create, or you can actually even create your own positions as well. So the key thing to talk about here is because we're in a brand new event, if we send this out, then pretty much I'm the only one who's going to get it because I'm the only one that's actually on duty in this event, in this specific position of Miro. So what I can also do is I can have this option here to send to off-duty personnel that are on call. So in the beginners video, we talked about the user preferences, where you can go on call, which is a general state. And we highly recommend that core emergency management staff are on call all year round, except for when they go on holidays. And you can actually modify, or every user can actually modify their own settings. The other option we have here is force send as SMS. So if we actually want to send an SMS out, and note the SMS is only going to use the subject line, we can click this option. So even if a user hasn't specified to receive SMSs, if they have a mobile number and we click this option, it'll send out an SMS to the people that are on duty in the event, and also the people that are on call. The last option to talk about here is confidential. So by default, when we send it out, when the emails go out, it'll be everything. It'll be the valid information, it'll be the address, the details, subject. So everything will actually go out in a nicely formatted email. However, the SMS will just be the subject only. But if we click confidential, then that means the email will also only just have the subject. So therefore, if something's confidential, click that option. By default, it won't be on. So it's better to not have that clicked unless it is confidential. The other additional option here is we can promote to dashboard.
Promoting items on the dashboard means that they will appear in that top right-hand corner and not scroll down as other items do on the dashboard feed.
And when we save that, that'll appear on the dashboard the next time the browser refreshes. So by default, the items on the left-hand side, the counters and the main flow will automatically update, but the items on the top right-hand corner will only update when the browser refreshes, and you can do that yourself manually or just wait till the next time you come onto the dashboard.
The other option is to use projector mode, which we'll be talking about shortly. The other type of information messages that we want to send out are hidden here under the type. So here we can select an incident action plan or a situation report, probably the two most common. So let's look at the situation report. So this one here is a pretty basic form. It's similar to the information, but it's specifically for situation reports. And you can go to full screen mode and you can put in your own headings, etc. And if you want to have your own default headings within the situation report, so this is a free flowing one, you can probably do that by using a template, which we haven't talked about yet. Okay, if we look at the incident action plan, here we have a form with a number of different fields here. So it's what a lot of people know as a SMEAX report.
So in here you have subject, situation, mission, etc. So the same detail here. We put in our subject line. What time is it? Let's say it's 1 p.m. SMEAC update. And in here you can obviously put in all your details, valid to and from, date and time. And in here we can also publish this by email and SMS. So other details are exactly the same as we saw before. Promote on the dashboard as an option as well. So that's something to look at and can be used. So this one's often used for things like business continuity. Keep aware that all announcements stay up there until they're deprioritized. Other items on the main part of the dashboard will continue to flow down as new items appear at the top, but these items the notifications will stay up in the top right-hand corner. At some later point in time, it might be hours or it could be the next day later, if we want to deprioritize the item so it doesn't stay on the top of the announcements area, we can do that by editing the record. Come up to edit, and in here we can change the status, bring it down to say not current, for example, and save. As we see, the information has now come down to 0 because that item is no longer current. The next time the dashboard redraws, we'll notice that the announcement's now gone from that top right-hand corner. As we just referred to in the previous section about creating a situation report that would be easy to work with the template, let's actually cover that. When we go into the information register, templates can also apply for requests, but let's look at information register. What we can do is look down at the counters and see if there's any templates already existing. So if you've never set them up, then your counter will be 0, but once you do set them up, then you'll have some values. So if I give that counter a click there, then what I can see is that I've got 2 templates here, and one of them's in the global workspace and one's in the current event. So that means if I go to another event, the second template won't be visible or accessible, but the one that's in the global workspace will be available in all the events that I have access to. So let's actually use one. Or I can use both at the same time. So what I'll do is I'll actually tick on both of these. So I can actually do the tick all, and then I'll click create a copy. So what it's going to do now is going to actually create 2 records at once from the template. And because there's 2, it'll say, do you want to view the drafts? And when I do that, it's effectively going to take me to this counter here that says drafts. Okay, so these are the 2 brand new drafts, and I want to go and edit this one here, the chemicals sitrep as of. And let's edit that. And here I can see that the source of information has already been specified to someone else, and it's probably good to have not an individual, but if it is from a template, have something like this, which is from your operating procedures or something like that. And here I can see the tag is coming. I can see that the subject is coming, and also the details. And I think I even specified the icon down here as well. So let's come in here, and I'll just say as of 8 p.m. Okay, and I'll zoom that to full screen, and I can work on this one here and just put in whatever the details here. And zoom back out and save it. Now when I save it, it's going to save it to the current event that I'm in. And by default, it's still in draft mode because that's where it came from the template. So we would just bring it to current and we can save that record. Okay, now that I've moved that item out of draft mode, the remaining one still sits there in draft. So if I go to look at the active items, you'll see that that new one that I just copied from the template is now sitting here as of just now anyway. So let's now talk about how we actually create a template. So using it, as you can see, was pretty easy. So to create one is also quite easy. So let's do that by creating a new information record. And we create our sample template. So let's do sample template. I'll just actually with table. Okay, and I'll do table EG. Okay, and now the only thing we need to do is at the moment, this is just the same as doing a normal information record. What I do is I come down to advanced, and I can come down here and say, save this item as a template. And when I do that, it'll ask me for the template name. So I'm going to call this one a sample table template. And in here, I'll just call this one a table example. Okay, so, and I can, if I want to, I could set a location. So let's just say I did want to put a location. That would also come in with it. And that could actually be helpful if I was actually doing a whole lot of requests at the incident control center or the relief center or operations center. You can actually have the address already tied in here. So if you're just always going to use a template for, say, an ICC request or an ICC information, you can just reuse the same one and it'll preset a whole lot of parameters such as display icons, addresses, tags, and even assignments as well. So yeah, so I'll just save that now. But the other thing to look at is which event it's going to go into. It either goes into the global event, which means it'll be accessible at any time for any event now and also into the future, or I can save it into just an individual event, which is the current one, which would be the case. So I've now created a new template, and what we'll see here is the templates is now up to 3. And there are 2 in the current event and 1 in the global workspace. So I'm just going to pop over to the flooded car park that we played with a little bit earlier. And what we'll notice in this particular one is that there'll probably be only 1 template available, and that's because there's only 1 in the global workspace. So it's pretty straightforward to create your record templates. So it's a great opportunity for you to go through and actually start to action a lot of the items that are in your emergency management plans. The other thing that we can do if you want it to see it come up automatically is if, for example, it's on a projector, is you can go into projector mode by clicking this particular icon in the top right-hand corner. You can put any screen in projector mode, and what that means is every 2 minutes the screen will automatically refresh, which is very handy if you, for example, are showing a list of filtered records on a list, which could be roadblocks or objectives or anything like that, and it automatically refreshes. The same for the dashboard. Okay, so the other thing to look at here for projector mode is once you're in any data grid, so at the moment I'm in a request data grid here, and I have a number of different tags, etc. So any query that I want to do, it could be search for a word or whatever, I can add that to be automatically refreshed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go first of all into projector mode, and then once I'm in projector mode, I'll do the search that I want to do. So I'm going to click on critical objectives. And what you can see is it's filtered the list and it's only showing me the items on the list. And I'm going to click on this icon here, which is the one that automatically pans and zooms. So now if I wait for 2 minutes, that'll automatically refresh. So if someone else in the background created a new record, which had the tag of critical objective, it would automatically just appear in there. And if there was an item on the map, then the map would automatically pan and zoom accordingly to be able to show that item. So if, let's say it was higher up there, then it would actually just effectively zoom out for us to actually show the 3 items that are on the map at the same time. So let's talk about requests and the workflow. I've pre-created a request and assigned it to the communications officer, as we can see here. And because Waylon Smithers is the only one that's on duty as the communications officer in this event at this time, only his head's on it. If there were 2 or 3 people on duty, then you'd see multiple heads on it. And this is a good historical view as well to be able to see who was actually on duty at the time. So as Waylon Smithers, I'll edit this record here, and you'll notice here I only have these options here: assigned, requested, in progress, and resolved. In the previous video, we talked about how if this is not for Waylon, as I said, the communications officer, they can just put it back to requested, and that effectively bounces it back to you, the coordination team. They can go to in progress, and with in progress, you can select the different in progress indicators, say 60%, etc. And then when they're done, they can resolve it. So let's go to resolve. Let's just put a note and say done, save. Then that record's now saved. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flick over to my other web browser where I'm logged in as a coordinator. Now back over as a coordinator, I have now there's only 1 record, but in this record here, it's now in the resolved state. And as a coordinator, that's an important thing for me to do, that is to look at the resolved items as well as the unassigned items. So obviously unassigned is what you assign out to someone else. Let's view and edit this record by either clicking on the ID or the subject line. If I want to look at the history, I can click on activity. And what I did is I went and just made a couple of changes so you can see there's a bit of history in here as well. We can click on edit.
Now you see that the position assigned is now unassigned, because when Wayland previously resolved it, it automatically removes the assignment. So now as a coordinator, I might realize, hang on, I now want to send this over to the general manager, to the PA, and we want to assign that and ask for approval and save. Okay, I've now gone and resolved it again after the general manager's edited it, and what I'll now do is go and look at closing it, because beforehand when we noticed Wayland Smithers, he only had a short list of things he's allowed to do under the status menu, whereas as a coordinator we have the additional item of closed, and this is an important point. So closed means it's fully done with, and only a coordinator can actually bring it back from being closed. So only the coordinator can do that. And the whole reason for that is to be able to have full situational awareness, so that if you know something's been asked to be done, then you know it's been completed, to help you with your future decision making. And this image here just shows the workflow cycle here, to show that things begin as unassigned when they're new, then they can be assigned, in progress, resolved, and also obviously go on hold, as well as going around again from the coordinator back to be reassigned again. And you can do that as many times as you like until they're closed. With some of the key features of Crisisworks being auditing and also used to help you manage what you're doing, it's not realistic to assume that everyone that you need to assign things to is going to be using Crisisworks. They might be using their own systems, or they might be an external organisation that has no system other than paper. So ideally you can tell them to use the app and set up an account, but realistically that isn't going to happen all of the time. And that might lead you to a question of integration. Crisisworks has a very fancy API system, it's called Application Programming Interface, where it allows other people to integrate with us without us having to do anything. But if we need to actually do some extra programming, then you'll need to speak to us about the cost and effort involved in doing so. Another approach is to use the concept of virtual agencies or virtual positions. And that just means a position that you create where you still assign things to them and you still put comments against those particular positions or organizations, but you actually do that yourself. So that if you pick up the phone and speak to them, then you edit the request and you put down the comment, say, spoke to Mick, they're 5 minutes away and they'll get onto it as soon as they can. And then you can update that. And then if he calls you in later on and says, we're now 50% through, you can edit that, or someone else can edit that and put it as 50% in progress until they say it's been resolved. So you can do that to help you audit exactly what's going on, because it's really important for you to have full auditability. And then that way they're not actually using the system. You're dealing with them in the good old-fashioned way via telephone and or other means. And then when you're done, then you resolve and close that particular request. You have a full audited history, including the time and dates, etc.
What I want to discuss now is talking about how we use resources, and specifically with requests. So with resources, they're all manageable under the settings menu. We go to resources here. I'm just going to flick to another tab, and this is something else to keep in mind. When you are using Crisisworks, you can use multiple tabs as you can with any other sort of web browser system. So in here I can see we've got some resources here such as backhoes, front-end loaders, etc. And you can also have subcontractors in here. This particular demo site doesn't have subcontractors that I can see here. So what I'll do is find a request, and we'll say we've got a sample request, and we'll add a resource to this request. So resources are really important to help us track costs and also the utilization of where those particular resources are. So let's go to edit this one. And only a coordinator can add resources. Okay, so we're going to scroll down here and go to resources and costs and add a new resource, and we'll add in a backhoe. And as we type, it filters it. We can select that one. And what it does here is it shows us the number of hours or the rate that's been predefined in the resources system. Say quantity of, say, 2. I'll go for something more interesting of 4. It might have their purchase order number from your finance department. And we have completed. So later on, when this particular backhoe has actually done its job, we can mark it off as completed. And as you can see, we can have as many resources as we like. I'm not sure what other resources we've got here. iPad case, anything you want to put in here as for items and also subcontractors. And here we can also mention who's actually authorized this particular expense. Okay, so now once we save that record, that resource is now in the system. Right, so let's click over to the resource list now. So go to resources, come and have a look at the backhoe, which is the one we just used then. What we can see here is we currently have this resource has actually been used in 2 different requests. And it gives us the name of the request as well as the event. So I can come in here and say, I want to go straight and see that particular request we did before, which was a sample one. There's a quantity 4, and the total cost was $600 because we can see the rate here is $150. So I could just give that a click and it'll take me straight to it. The other thing as well, when we have a look at the resource, we can actually define all of the particular settings. So this is something that's preferably done as part of your preparation to put your resources in advance. So therefore, when you do want to use the costs, they're already in here. So in here, we can specify the units. So in this case, it's a cost per hour and what that rate is. And if you want, you can put in the model number, serial number, etc., and tags as well to help you manage it. So I hope you can make good use of the resources. So then later on, when you run your reports, you can get your costs out of the system.
When working in an emergency where there's a lot of data to manage, you might be aware of a number of requests that have been resolved that you want to close in bulk. So when we're on the request list here, by default we're on active. So if I look at the resolved status, which is here, that shows me the resolved items. I might have spoken to these people on the phone and I realize I don't need to look at the full history of them and I want to close them at the same time. So I can click on them. And when you notice, when I click on them, down the bottom, the icon shows or hides. So by clicking these 2 particular items, and I click bulk edit, so I'll add a comment and press save. And here we can see those 2 items up the top, which are now closed. And you can see it says it was just updated just a few seconds ago. If you were doing a bulk update to hundreds of records, which is probably more likely for inspections, then you would get an email notification to say when they're done, because it can actually take a long time when you're doing a lot of records. But you're able to continue working as it'll do that in the background. When we're working in an emergency, we may want to draw on the map to be able to draw an area to highlight where a flooded area is or where there's the range of a chemical spill in terms of the effects over a certain number of kilometres for residents, for example. So we don't directly draw on the map, but what we do is we can create an information or a request record. So normally it'll be information, and that'll have an annotation, a map annotation, which will then show on the map. Demonstrate that by creating a new information record. I'll go to full screen and we can draw an area on the map. So like so. Exit full screen mode by clicking the same icon or pressing exit there. And we might put down here flooded area as of, I don't know, 2 p.m. The other thing we can do here is we can also add in a display icon. So if we don't put one in, it'll give us a default information bubble. But in here we can choose something here such as flood. And save. And you can also add your own icons, but there's quite a few icons to choose from in there. If you don't see it appear on the map straight away, you may need to press the reload icon in that bottom left hand corner. And we can now see our flood icon to show where it is. And that means people know if they zoom in. I'm just doing double clicks to zoom in there. And I can see the flooded area.
The next thing to discuss is a question that I'm often asked is, how do we delete data? And what happens if we create data or records in the wrong event? So that's a reasonably simple question, but the answer is not straightforward. Because Crisisworks audits everything that's done, if we allow deletion, then that makes it difficult to be able to audit on what's been done if we remove items. So instead of allowing you to delete, what we can do is it can allow you to move data to other events. So what we can do here is when we are with this particular record that we have, that we spoke about before, if we want to move it, we can go to the advanced menu and we can actually go and move into another event. So I'm going to move into this larger emergency example. But that larger emergency example could actually be another event that you create called deleted items or archived items. Depends on how you want that to work. and then that way it keeps track of it being moved along. So let me just save that. And now if I refresh this, there's now no data in here. The total's gone down to 0 and they're all pretty much gone. If I flick over to the other event, we'll see that in there. Okay, so we're now in the other event, the larger emergency example, and this is the item that we just moved over about 3 minutes ago. So if I click on that particular link to look at the record, and I click on the activity to look at it, it loads up the history and I can see what's changed here. It shows that it's moved from another event into this event here. And then all of the other changes are all in there to help us see this full audit history. Okay, so now we've spoken about moving requests or other records from one event to another. It's very much related to the next item I want to discuss, which is talking about contacts. So if we want to look at our contacts, we go to the operations menu and we can select contacts here, or from the dashboard, we can press contacts as well. And when we do that, it shows an aggregated list as we spoke about in the previous video. And we can see here that there are 29 contacts that are from this particular event itself. If we want to, after our training session or after have done a real exercise, we might decide that some of these records are actually meaningful and should actually be in the main system for later on. So what we can do here is we can go and edit the particular contact. And the same way that we saw previously, we can go into the advanced area. Well, in fact, it's not in advanced because it's kind of exposed in the contacts, so we can actually save it into another event. And that event here might be the council workspace or the global workspace. And these other workspaces are examples of where I worked with someone else to talk about if they want to use Crisisworks to help them manage their events like festivals and carnivals, etc. So global just means it'll be available in all events. We'll speak more about the global events and workspaces to make sure that the appropriate positions are linked to the global events.
This slide was used in the introductory video, so I want to use it again to discuss the way we work with positions to see who has access to the events as well, and that's for normal events as well as global events. And this diagram here shows that a single event has its own data, so request information and offers, logs and cases and all the rest of it, as well as contacts. The reason why contacts and library and template items have been put in the middle is because these items belong to a single event, but they can also belong to global events. And when they're in a global event, then they're also available to multiple events based on the position. And the positions in the green area, there's a line going down to that because each event has multiple positions and resources, and you can configure the different registers for it. So let's look at some events and global events. First of all, we'll start by looking at a normal event. So this larger emergency example, if I give it a single click, or I can also select from that drop-down list the Manage Current Event, it takes me to this event summary screen. And this is a really useful screen here. So here I can click on the positions to see which positions are associated with this event. And this is also a handy little contact sheet as well. So you can see who's on duty in the particular position in the event at this time. And you've got their phone numbers and email addresses. And you can also see how many people actually have this particular competency or position in the system. So if I, for example, wanted to look at the communications officer for this particular one, if I click on the number 2, it'll actually take me and do a filter in the user position and say, well, these two people have this particular position. And if I want to actually bring one or more of these people into the event, I can actually go to Manage Duties and bring them into the event, which is the larger emergency example, which is selected here. And I can click on everything to bring everything on, or just the position that I wanted, which was the communications officer, and update. So yes, you can get people to go on duty themselves, or you can actually put other people on duties, and you can also do it in bulk. Okay, and while we're in the users list or data grid, I'm just going to look at some of these counters which are very helpful for you to manage. We have the number of active users in the system here. We also have on duty for the event. So because I'm currently in the larger emergency example, it's showing me the 20 people that are currently on duty. Also, if I want to see who's currently on call, so this is not for the event, this is just on call for the system. And this is where we recommend all key emergency management staff are on call. We can see who are, as well as who's going to receive SMSs and as well for receive email. So that's very helpful for you to manage who's going to be getting notifications out of the system. We will be introducing in the near future an ability to, as we saw before, we could do bulk manage duties. We're going to add bulk edit as we have in the requests and information screens as well. So we should be able to do bulk receive SMS, bulk email, etc.
Part of Crisisworks flexibility is the way we have multiple positions. So any event can have multiple positions and any user can have multiple positions. And if a user has any one of those positions that the event has, then they have access to it. This particular example here shows that Joanne can't see the hazmat incident because her position of general manager isn't included for the event. The bottom half of this image shows that if you don't have a matching position, then you won't see the information in the global workspace as well. Additionally, when you go on and off duty in the different positions, it will affect your level of access. So it's important to make sure that your position, which should match your real world position that you use for emergency or incident management, you go on duty when you actually are on duty, and you go off duty when you're not on duty anymore. Being on and off duty in Crisisworks will affect your notifications.
Let's return to manage the current event, but this time I will use the manage current event option rather than the single click which I showed you before. And from this screen here, we see the total number of records and we see the boundary that covers all of the particular items that have a location. What we want to do is we want to edit the positions. Before we clicked on the positions list, but we can also click on manage positions to go straight into managing and editing them. So what this does here, this shows us all of the different positions that are active for the event. Some of these items are grayed because these people have actually, these positions have already been filled and people are already on duty in these events. But some of the ones that you can tick and untick are positions that haven't been actually utilized in this event. So if I, for example, want to add this particular position, I give it a tick. Or if I want to do a whole group at once, so if I, for example, want to add all of the council positions, I give it a single click and it'll tick them all. Or I can do a single tick to untick them all. And we can have different position groups. So here, if I want to add up all of these particular ones to do with the bus stop management example, I click on that and they'll get added at the same time. Then I can press update and then they get added in. So if someone doesn't have one of these positions, that means they won't have access to this particular event. They won't even see it. The other thing to look at is how we work with global events. So when we want to work with events, we can go to this, our favorite little menu down here, and go to manage events plural. And when we're in this screen here, we can view all the open events. They're the normal events that we work in. We can look at the global events, and we'll talk about template events shortly. So now we're in the global events area here. We can see that there are 4 of them. However, only 3 are open. So if we want to click on the council workspace and edit or manage the positions, then what we have here is all the different positions that actually have access to this particular global workspace. So in this example here, pretty much all of the council positions are being ticked on. There's a couple of new ones. Let's add the general manager's PA, and that's a good tip as well. If you do go adding new positions for yourself, you need to go in and add them to the different global workspaces and also the template events accordingly. You can add other ones. I mean, at the moment, the name of council workspace is just a name in its own right. However, it really just comes down to the positions. So in this example here, in this sample, okay, so what we can do is go down and press update. Templates are pretty much the same as global events with regards to which positions have access to it. With templates, if we look at the emergency sample, which is the one that we used before, what we can do is we can look at which positions will be in that particular event. So we can go to manage positions and we can choose the particular positions. We might say, well, we want a media and communications person or position. We might want and also the communications officer. So by default, if we add them in, then when we create a brand new event, it'll automatically copy these positions into the new event. So here we can see the different positions for this event. So what it does is it saves you having to go and edit every event by having good templates. So you could have large scale emergencies, small scale incidents. You could have single house fires. You could have hazmat. You could have business continuity events, etc. So they're the positions. The registers for a lot of organizations that probably won't need the recovery ones. They might just want to have these top ones here. So we can edit those. We also have resources, so you can actually choose to have different resources for different events. So by default, these resources in the emergency sample will automatically be copied into a new event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this particular one and add another resource, and then we'll create a new event from the template and have a look at that. So let's look at here. We've got a contractor jets training cleaning, and we've got glass repairer as well. And now what I want to do is I want to show you how we can actually turn an event into an event template. And it is pretty straightforward. What we can do is we can go and create any event. And what I'll do is I'll do that now. I'm going to create a new event. I'm going to create this one a sample. We'll call this one maybe a hazmat. And we'll base it on the emergency sample. Then we'll press finish. You can see here these are the positions that are going to be automatically added, and the resources will also come in. And as we can see here, the event's been created with the default positions that we've chosen before. So let's go and create some records, because another important feature to do with the event templates is the fact that you can actually have default requests. So what I'm going to do is go and create a request. Go to operations requests. And create a couple of requests. So I'll pause it now and I'll create a couple of requests and then I'll resume.
As we can see here, I've created 3 sample requests for a hazmat sample event.
And at the moment, there's no difference between this event and a template event. So now it's reasonably straightforward. We'll click to come to this particular screen we've seen before. And when we go edit event, it actually edits this general information. So when we go to edit, this is where we can come in here and we can change some other details, such as the coordinator. We might decide who the coordinator position is, or that could be the incident controller, for example. And in here we might have some different tags. So let's just say we might want hazmat as a tag that we want for every time we create a new event from the hazmat item. We might have, say, chemical spill. And in here is where we choose whether the event's going to become a template or a global event. So the global events are really only going to be mainly if you want to have sort of shared areas for contacts and libraries. Otherwise, templates probably the main thing you'll probably be working with. So we click on, scroll to the bottom and update it. What will happen is this event will disappear from this top right hand corner. There's now no event selected. So now when we go to create a new event, we can now choose the template here of the hazmat sample, which we just created. Scroll down, press next. Oops, need to give it a title. Demo chemical spill.
And on this screen, we can choose to copy the items from the template or not by clicking that little checkbox down there. But we'll just leave them on because that's the whole purpose of this example.
So as you can see here, this event has been created from the template. And we can see here there are 3 requests and 1 contact that's been created. And the reason why there's 1 contact is when I actually set it up, I was actually the requester. Ideally, I should have set someone else up to be the requester, and that requester could have been the organization's organizing body or whatever you want to put down there. You might put down company procedures as the contact. So that's why it's 3 requests and 1 contact. We didn't create any information or anything else, but we could have done that. So let's go and have a look at the requests in here. So let's go to operations requests, and there we can see the different requests, and that one's automatically assigned to the Miro because that was done before. And that gives you an example of how to create a template and how to implement it. If you actually want to edit the template, there's a 2-step process. You need to actually go and edit your events, manage events, click on templates, and what we do is look for the template we want to edit. Now, if we want to edit positions, you can just do that from here. However, if you want to add new requests or other template items to it, then what we need to do is we need to actually make this event active. We need to edit it, change it from being a template back to a normal event. Switch to the event. Then we can go and edit the requests or the contacts or anything that we want to do, and or information. We can also add library records just for the event itself. And then that way, once we make those changes, we come back and edit this and turn it back into a template. It's a powerful feature, and I recommend that you go through and set up your templates to be able to make things nice and smooth for you when you do have incidents and emergencies.
Okay, to begin wrapping up by summarising, we've actually covered quite a lot of material. The previous video, which was for beginners, laid the foundations, and the coordinators here sort of gave a lot of detail and depth, and there has been quite a lot discussed. So please feel free to go through and watch this video as many times as you like and pause the different sections. I'll now go through and summarise each of the sections briefly. Events are really the building blocks of Crisisworks. We covered creation of events and also discussed specifically that you need to make sure you choose the appropriate template, and also the risk level, noting that the test ones send out the asterisks and test before each message that goes out. We covered editing events to add positions, add resources, etc. We've covered global events and event templates. We also discussed how we put other people on duty and how we can view all events at the same time, noting when you do that, the new button disappears. We also discussed joining an event, which results in recommending that you should create your events before people turn up if you're going to have a training session, because normally in the real world, an event will be created before people turn up. And also the on-duty contact sheet within the event summary is a very handy thing to look at. With record templates, what we discussed is that they're just like normal records. However, the difference is that when you go to save them, you go to the advanced section and you can save it as a template and give it a specific title for the template, which means when you use them later on and you use the copy feature, it'll actually copy all of the details fully from the template into a brand new record. And those particular templates can actually be stored in the current event or in a global event. So generally, you probably have them in a global event as part of your preparation and planning from your procedures. However, in a specific event, you might have one for the incident control center or the relief center or some other location, or there could be a particular thing to do with a roadblock, so that you could just effectively create what is going to be common to most of them and just effectively duplicate those each time and store that in the current event. And to get to the templates, there is an extra template counter that's found once there are templates. So if there are no templates available, then the template counter won't show. The dashboard is your main screen. It's the place you go to when you're not really doing anything. And because of that, we have the activity feed there that shows. So all of the history of what's occurred that you have access to shows up there. And you can also expand things to click on the details to see what's changed. And you can click on the counters. The counters show the active items in all of the different registers. And it gives you situational awareness in terms of what's open. And a single click takes you to those particular items. Also in the top right hand corner, we have promoted items. So important things can sit up the top there and they'll stay there all the time until they've been demoted. And we have covered how to demote them. Also, the map items are also appearing there on the dashboard. So just to be aware that the main part of the dashboard in terms of the counters and the activity feed, they automatically update instantly. But the other two items require the screen to refresh. And if you want that to happen automatically, say on a projector, you can use the projector mode. So when you do that, the screen will automatically refresh or reload every 2 minutes. And that includes the dashboard and including any data grids or lists. And if you are in a list or a data grid and you've done a search or a filter, it will reapply that filter for you every 2 minutes. And that includes map refreshes. So any new items that have been created by anyone anywhere else will automatically just apply there, including their map location, which is very handy for things such as roadblocks, as well as any other thing that has a geospatial location that you want to be able to project on a TV or a projector. A few more things to mention about the dashboard are that everything pretty much has a hyperlink. So when you click on the hyperlink, it takes you to that record and you can edit or view and then return back to where you've come from. You can also create new items from the dashboard as well as anywhere. And that drop-down list allows you to choose anything, as well as you have your menu bar up the top. So it's your main area to go to get an update as to what else is going on around you. And also the dashboard feed is available as the sidebar in other screens, which is what we spoke about in the beginners video. to prepare them before you have emergencies. And that includes adding in costs per unit, or in terms of details of the serial numbers or anything else you want to put in there. But when we actually work with requests, we can actually put in one or more resources to a particular request, and we can get the cost report data out of that at any time. The information register is used for things that aren't assigned that need to be completed off by a particular position. And therefore, we add the publishing into that particular module. So if you want to send out a broadcast message, or you want to have a highlighted notice that's pinned to the dashboard, you do it via information. And you also use information if you actually want to do a map annotation. So if you just want to be able to draw a flooded area or a predicted area to be affected, in the future, you can actually go and create a new information record and do a map annotation. You can also add a custom map icon, either one of the many pre-built ones, or you can add your own. The information register also has a situation report and incident action plan, as well as the standard information register, so they can all be published. So the publishing can be, by default, sends out to all on-duty users in the event. And if you want to target specific positions, then by default, it'll only target on-duty people in those positions that you target. You can also target individual users. We didn't cover that earlier because I didn't want to complicate things, but any on-duty people can actually be individually targeted for a message. If you use the option to force SMS, it will actually send an SMS regardless of their preferences. Whereas if you don't use that option, then people only get the message based on their preferences, and their preferences is where people choose to select to receive items via email and or SMS. We also have the option of a confidential record when it comes to information. And if you do that, then the details aren't sent in the email. Only the subject line would be sent via email and SMS. And if you don't choose that option, then a lot of the details of the information record will come through. The details, the subject, the validity time, and even the attachments, and a whole lot of other details will all go out. We covered map annotation, which applies to all registers, where you can draw lines, points, or polygons. And you can also zoom the screen to full screen to help you work with that a bit better. Also, the activity history appears on all registers as well, so you can expand that to see what's changed over time. And when you see a particular edit that's happened at a certain date and time by a certain person, you can click on details to expand and see exactly the details of the actual change. If it was that you had the value of 1 and it was struck out and you wrote 2, you'd actually see that exact detail. As well as all the activity is when something's assigned to someone, if it was a request, you'd actually see which particular people were on duty at that particular time to give you an idea historically in terms of auditability. We also covered deleting and archiving and moving records, which applies to pretty much across the board. So you're not allowed to delete. We can actually move things into another event. So if you do want to do that, you can create perhaps an event called deleted items as opposed to archived. You might want to archive some records after a certain period of time. And so there's a number of different options there. And obviously the moving is useful for working with global events and contacts, etc. If you realize you want to move something into a global event or vice versa, that's how you can move your data around. Or even if someone accidentally created data in the wrong event, you can move it. Contacts and library records are really important, and it's a really important part of your preparation and your implementation of your emergency management plans or incident management plans. So you can have all of your contacts that you're likely to need or to know that you're going to need in advance stored in your contacts, but store them in a global event. And you can have multiple global events. We'll talk about that in the following slide. And the same for library. So that's where you might have your procedures and your policies and a whole lot of different templates, etc. Like document templates such as press releases and organizational charts, specification documents for, say, chemicals or any sort of reference material that you'll need during an emergency. Note that both contacts and library information are available and accessible via the Crisisworks app. And that gives you a really good incentive to actually put proper contact data in with mobile numbers and email addresses, etc. Because if you're using your mobile app, you can just press a single link, whether it be mobile or email, to automatically call or email them directly from your smartphone. And the contacts can also be stored for offline access as well. And those sorts of details will be covered in the session to do with using the mobile apps. Having pre-entered the contact details makes it very helpful when you're adding in requests or information records. So when you're doing a request and you put in the requester, you can just do a search for them or a partial search for them and bring them in. And same with information, you can put in the source of information. So that's really helpful, having that information in advance with all the appropriate contact details. They'll save a lot of time later on when you're in a stressful environment. I've often seen with people prior to implementing Crisisworks properly, they have big pieces of paper, like might be 10 or 15 pages full of contact details. And if you want to try to find that in a hurry, that's not very helpful. Using the proper context, you can find them very quickly with the Rolodex or doing a search, etc. We recapped user preferences where people can set their own email subscriptions for information from us, from the Crisisworks providers and developers, as well as your SMS and email notifications for alerts from within Crisisworks, as well as counters that you can use in the list for quickly seeing who has SMS enabled or email or who's on call. And also recapping that users can have multiple positions and they need to have a matching position to be able to see the event. Global events are terrific to help you with storing your contacts in your library records, as we discussed a short while ago, as well as adding your record templates. So if you, as part of your preparation work, you put all that information in there, then it's really going to be fantastic during an actual emergency. And we also discussed how we actually create the global events, how we edit them, and how we can add additional items to the global event, which is just going to the advanced and saving a record into that global workspace or moving something into the global workspace. And the really important thing to keep in mind with global events is that the name of the event is irrelevant. So if you have something called Council Workspace, it really comes down to which positions have access to the global event. So it's worthwhile reviewing periodically your global event to make sure all positions are in it. Or if you have a business continuity event, make sure the specific positions that should have access to it are there. Or if you've got a council workspace, to make sure they are council positions that are in there, including any additional ones you may have added. So you can have your own custom global events that can help you segregate information like contacts and library records to be only available to people with those specific positions based on your needs. An event template is where we can set up what we want our defaults to be for a new event in the future. So it's worthwhile thinking about what sort of emergencies or incidents or projects we want to use regularly. And when we create a new event, what are the default records, such as requests or information that we might want to have in there, including library records. As well, some of them could be announcements that could be automatically sent out to particular positions. So let's just say it's an evacuation, you could actually preset 4 or 5 different announcements to automatically go out, and as well as some draft items that could be pre-prepared, say to be non-current, that you can then edit to make them current. So it's effectively like a checklist of things you need to do, but 3/4 of the data is already there, you just need to make a quick edit and away you go. So that's a good part of actually implementing your emergency management plans into Crisisworks as a living item, because we shouldn't be looking at pieces of papers or books to be able to see what we need to do during an emergency. It should just be there for us. But a couple of the most important items to make sure that are in the event templates are the positions as well as the resources. So the positions will be which positions get added. Obviously you can add them after the event has been created, but it's better to get them as close to right as you can in your preparation in terms of adding them into your event template. And the same for your resources. We also covered how to actually turn an event into an event template. You pretty much just create a standard event, but just make sure you're working generically, so it's not specific to a specific event. So you work generically, and then you go to you add all your records and everything else that you want to do. Then you go and edit the event details and just save it as a template. And then once you do that, then that'll be hidden from you because you can't actually go on duty in a template. So then next time you go to create an event, it'll be available to use. If you then subsequently want to then edit the template, you just need to make it not a template into a regular event, edit as you need, and then go back and convert it back into a template again. There will be more videos to come to cover recovery, other ones for mobile, using the mobile apps, as well as one for Crisisworks administration and Crisisworks implementation tips and best practices.
Whilst we've designed Crisisworks to be easy to use, if you have any questions about how to use it or any problems, please contact support@crisisworks.com. You can also consult the help menu in the top right hand corner of Crisisworks to be able to get some online help. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye for now.